So this was originally going to be a Squid Game video essay, but then I felt really bad because a lot of you guys left me some really great suggestions for the Halloween video, and I wanted to include the wonderful suggestions you guys gave me. And then I saw Dune and No Time to Die, both of which I wanted to make a video for, but I don't really have time to make individual videos for them, so I thought, why not? I'll merge them all into one. But before I get into all of them, I just want to say if you guys enjoyed today's video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe. Alright, let's get into it. Okay, since I'm uploading this on Halloween, I think it's best to start with the spooky Halloween suggestions. So for some truly scary stuff, we have Midnight Mass, which is the new Netflix series directed by none other than Mike Flanagan. It's really scary and more character driven, but I think that's sort of its charm. It delves into trauma, religion, morality, and way more. Speaking of Mike Flanagan, The Haunting of Hill House. This is another Netflix original, and if you want to watch one spooky episode, I recommend watching episode 5 and even 6 if you have time. Next, I have the Conjuring trilogy. These are probably the best modern / mainstream horror movies out there right now, and the one I can recommend the most is probably the second one, and you can either watch them on HBO or Netflix. Lastly, I have The Others. This movie stars Nicole Kidman, and it truly goes into some really spooky and scary stuff. The scares are never cheap, the cinematography is very moody and atmospheric, and there's a lot of twists and turns that you will not expect. For some hidden gems and moderate horror, I have Malignant, which is directed by James Wan, who's pretty much the god of horror right now. It's super unconventional, very well shot, super whack, and is honestly just a blast to watch because it's so ridiculous and campy. Next, Batman Mask of the Phantasm. This is probably my favorite Batman movie next to the Lego Batman and Batman Begins. I grew up with Kevin Conroy Batman, and this movie is great as it has a lot of amazing character moments, frightening scenes, and a very mysterious and spooky antagonist. Lastly, I have Coraline. This movie is super freaky and kind of Tim Burton-esque. It has some truly horrifying moments that'll be seared into your brain with a truly imaginative and eerie environment that'll capture your attention from start to finish. For some straight up fun stuff, I have Community Season 2 Episode 6, which is basically a story about a zombie outbreak in a community college, and it's honestly one of the best episodes in the show. It has a lot of Halloween and ABBA music, and it's just extremely funny. You can watch this on Netflix or Hulu. Next up, The Babysitter and The Babysitter Killer Queen. Both of these are on Netflix, and if you're a fan of just insane action, gory moments, and stuff that just makes no sense, then these movies are for you. I highly recommend watching them with a group because it's just funnier reacting to the really insane and over-the-top moments. They're both pretty short, which makes for a great double feature. Lastly, Hubie Halloween. This one is just really stupid Adam Sandler fun. You really can't go wrong with this one. It's insane, wholesome, and honestly is unironically amazing. Go check it out, it's on Netflix. Now to get into your guys' suggestions. First one comes from Hugh Mann, who recommends Over the Garden Wall, which I actually just watched by the way, so I can attest to that one because it's really good. Next, the Fear Street trilogy on Netflix, which I haven't seen yet, but I heard it's really good, and Hereditary, and yeah man, I absolutely love Hereditary, and I recommend that one too because it's one of my favorite modern horror movies as well. Next, we have Music, who recommends Eyes Wide Shut by Stanley Kubrick. Absolutely love that film, probably my favorite from Kubrick, and any episode from Batman the Animated Series, which includes Scarecrow. Great suggestions, man. I really love the animated series, and all the Scarecrow episodes are indeed very scary and well done. The next recommendation is from Caroline, who suggests Hush, which is also directed by Mike Flanagan, and yeah, this movie freaking rules, cause as Caroline says here, the protagonist is actually super smart, and doesn't a horror movie featuring a deaf protagonist just sound super tense? Well, it is, so you should definitely watch it. And the other recommendation is Parasite, and yep, definitely can't go wrong with Parasite. It won Best Picture, it's really well done, it's on Hulu, and is more scary for different reasons rather than the traditional horror stuff. And the next one is from Oliver, who suggests The Thing from 1982. I really love that movie. It has a lot of really cool practical effects, and so many shots that are just seared into my brain, and it's an absolute classic. Oliver also suggests Halloween from 1978, which is also by the guy who directed The Thing, this being John Carpenter. I actually haven't seen any of the Halloween movies to be honest, but yeah, everyone always talks about this one because it's super iconic. Lastly, Run from 2020. This one I have seen, and it's a really tight and short horror thriller about a mother who's potentially poisoning her daughter, and the daughter, whose legs are paralyzed, has to escape her mother who's locked inside her house. So yeah, thanks for all those wonderful recommendations, Oliver. Next, we have Daredevil Shill, who recommends Garth Marenghi's, I butchered that, I know, I'm sorry, Dark Place from 2004. It's 6 episodes, and unfortunately I don't know anything other than from the description here, but if what he wrote in there appeals to you, you should definitely check it out. And thanks so much for this suggestion, man, I really appreciate that. And the last one is from Charlie Cox. Nice name, man. The suggestions are Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock. That one I have seen and is an absolute classic. Love that film to death. The Rick and Morty, Zombie, and Purge episodes, and all the Brooklyn Nine-Nine Halloween heist episodes. So pretty sure those two are on Hulu if you want to see those. I haven't seen the Brooklyn Nine-Nine ones, but those are some great suggestions, so thank you for recommending them. And actually, thank you all for recommending those and taking the time to do that. I think that was pretty fun, and I really appreciate everyone sending in their comments, and I hope you guys have a great Halloween. Alright, next let's get into Squid Game real quick. So yeah, this one I had a really long video essay on how it gave me crippling anxiety, and I was gonna talk about the various ways the show builds tension, but yeah, school wants to kill me, so unfortunately I wasn't able to make it. Maybe someday I will down the line, but for now, I just want to talk about my thoughts on it generally. I love Squid Game. It's probably one of my favorite things that have come out this year, and yeah, it's not super deep or game-changing, but it's immensely entertaining and unpredictable. The characters are all great, and I genuinely didn't know who was gonna make it out or not. I went into the show thinking it was a reality game show for some reason, so you can probably imagine my shock with the trajectory of the show. A lot of people aren't a fan with how the show ended, but I for one thought it was a really cool twist and it didn't detract anything from the plot. Overall, the show was the most riveting thing I've seen probably in the past decade. I really can't say for most things that a show or a movie genuinely had me on the edge of my seat with my heart racing, but this show did it for me because it always went into a different trajectory, also in a way that enhanced the story in an enticing way. I'll probably give Squid Game like a 9 or a 10. I really loved it, and if you haven't seen it yet, hop on the bandwagon. For once, I think the hype is really deserved for the show. Next up is Dune. I really love Dune. Dune is a novel that was written by Frank Herbert back in the 1960s and is actually what sort of inspired Star Wars. I read the first third of the book a year ago and never finished it. It's really good, mind you, but it's also extremely dense, and I was kind of worried at how this would be adapted. But not too worried because it's also being directed by my favorite modern filmmaker right now, this being Denis Villeneuve. The man has made only bangers like Prisoners, Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, Arrival, and the list goes on. But Dune really wasn't that hard to follow in my opinion. Sure, there's a lot of sci-fi jargon, but it's actually done in a pretty digestible way and only gets better on rewatches. The world building is probably the best I've ever seen in a sci-fi movie, if I'm being honest. The cinematography is immaculate and really showcases the scope of the movie in a grand way. The acting, the characters, the writing, it's amazing. Granted, it's not for everyone, it's not flashy action. It's really slow, political, and is focused more on the lore and world building rather than just an overarching plot that's driving the film. That, and this is a film that's adapting half of the book, so it doesn't end on the most satisfying note, and really is just half of a movie. I'll give Dune a 9 out of 10. Next up is James Bond, No Time to Die. So admittedly, I had only seen part of Skyfall back in 2012, but really I hadn't seen a single James Bond movie. I binged all the Daniel Craig ones before the release to get the full idea of it, since I heard these movies actually have a continuity. The thing with James Bond though is that it can be kinda hit or miss sometimes, and the reactions to this film were just that, hit or miss. Which was a little unusual because it's pretty much just one way, a hit or a miss, not both reactions. So I was kind of curious as to where I'd fall in this movie, and it's definitely a hit. 100% my favorite Bond movie. The film is extremely character focused, which really justifies the 2-hour and 40-minute runtime. The cinematography is very creative and captures the raw intensity of the film. The action is super visceral, never unnecessary, shot well, and usually came at times where I didn't expect it to. Overall, I was really surprised by this film, and it actually does sort of make for a Halloween watch because there are some horror type moments. That, and it's probably the most suspenseful Bond film. With it being the last one in the franchise, you can tell anything can happen, and the movie aptly shows that. It visually shows that no one in this movie is safe, which made it all the more riveting. Overall, I think this movie was phenomenal, the best in the Daniel Craig Bond movies, and I highly recommend watching it. I'll give it a 9 out of 10, and it's probably my favorite movie of the year right now, just slightly above Dune. So that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in. I know this isn't generally what I do. Usually I do video essays on blockbusters and superhero stuff, which will return soon, but I think I just needed a little something to switch things up for a bit. But the videos from November all the way until the release of Spider-Man No Way Home are going to primarily be a marathon of Spider-Man related content. And the one I'm going to do first is a video essay on Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3, which was chosen by you guys. With all that being said, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate a like and a sub if you haven't already, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.